caught my cheating girlfriend in bed with AP in my house. So, I'm 29 years old and my girlfriend is 33. We've been together for 7 years. We had lately discussed getting married, and I had already proposed, and we were already making preparations for the wedding. I already had the rings. So, one day I was at work and decided to leave early. I contacted my girl many times and received no response. A few messages later, and still no response. I was concerned that anything had happened to her, so I rushed home. I phoned again just before arrival, but there was no response. When I stepped through the main door, I could hear my dreams coming from the master bedroom. I peered through a crack in the door and saw she was cheating. I slipped away carefully, taking my ring off and leaving it on the dinner table with a message that read, "I hope you had fun. Here is your promised ring." I exited the building and sat in my vehicle for about 5 minutes, contemplating. I started the engine and revved it as loudly as I could for a few seconds just to let her know I was there. Then I drove away. I contacted my cousin and asked if I could spend the weekend at his place since it was a Friday. I had weekends off. He inquired as to what had occurred, but I told him I needed to tell him in person. When I arrived at his house, his mother and wife live with him. His mother is divorced. I waited in my vehicle and requested him to come out. I was sobbing as I told him what had occurred. He hugged me like a brother. Then his wife and aunt came out. They were perplexed as to why I was so agitated, and my cousin recounted what had occurred since I could scarcely speak. After a time, I started getting a lot of phone calls and messages from my girlfriend, telling me to come home because she needed to speak to me. My cousin's wife responded, saying I was too busy to converse. That night, I had been lying in bed all day when I received a message from one of my friends, who said she wanted to chat to me about what had transpired. I told her she had to assure me that my girlfriend wouldn't be there, and she did. I met her in a Mexican restaurant, where she had ordered meals for both of us, but I couldn't eat and could hardly communicate. We sat for a few minutes simply chatting about how I felt, and then she apologized out of nowhere. When I questioned why, she glanced towards the door, and my girlfriend came in. I attempted to swiftly return to my vehicle and drive away, but they both dragged me back and begged me to calm down. We were sitting in the parking lot, and my girlfriend was weeping and repeating how sorry she was and how she wanted to mend things, but I simply glanced around, avoiding her face, and remained mute. She inquired as to where I was staying, and I just said that I was staying with my cousin. She came over to embrace me, but I gently pushed her away and returned to my cousin's house. We simply relaxed outside at his place and smoked a joint so I could feel a bit better and sleep. My phone was inundated with messages and missed phone calls the following day, but I ignored them all. My cousin urged me to feel free to stay as long as I wanted, but I didn't want to bother his family or personal life, so I told him I'd book a hotel. But he advised me to remain in the second home on the property where my aunt resided. I double-checked with her to make sure she was happy with it, and then I thought it was okay. I went back home to retrieve some clothing and personal belongings, and when I arrived, my girlfriend and her friend were sobbing. I strolled by them, ignored them, and swiftly exited. I walked back to my relatives and tried to distract myself from it, but it was difficult, so I took another blunt to calm myself. I wished I had my mother, but she was no longer alive, and I'd never met my father. My girlfriend arrived at my cousin's place 1 hour later. She attempted to come over to chat, but my family was telling her to go. I decided to come out and attempt to listen to what she had to say. I saw she still had her ring on and informed her who she was going to marry, and she burst out laughing and sobbed like a baby. She attempted to stay, but I told her that if she needed someone, she should go with her other boyfriend since he was so much better than me and things were becoming hot. My cousin's wife then told her to relax and drove her back to my place. I've been staying at my cousin's/place aunt's lately, but I'm now lost. Any suggestions? That struck me harder than any punch I've ever received. Edit, I've shed 20 pounds since then and am no longer in shape. Thank you for your insightful remarks. I really appreciate it. Edit #2. As a result, I'm transferring ownership to her name. I don't give a damn about money. I have enough money to do anything I want. I'm going to go gather all of my possessions in a minute and will keep you updated on what happens later. Edit #3. When I went to remove my personal items from the residence, she was sobbing with some pals. One of her friends requested if I could kindly speak to her and give her a chance. I declined. They attempted to follow me again, and I threatened to call the police, so they sat me down to talk. She was weeping and pleading once again that she would do anything. I was staring at my shoes the whole while she attempted to bring my face up to look at her, but I glanced away, got up, and went right away. I drove back to my brother's house and am now in pain all over again. To be honest, I'm done. I feel as if I simply want to give up. Edit 4. She said that she is leaving. So I'm selling the home now that she's no longer living there. Now I'm merely considering purchasing my next home. Edit 5. I'm going to remain in a hotel for the time being while I hunt for a new place to live. I don't want to intrude on or upset my family's private life too much. Update. As a result, the home is being sold. I moved out of my aunt's house and purchased a mini mansion. I got it at a reasonable price. I severed all communication with my ex. That man she cheated on got away. He hasn't yet attempted anything against me. I quit drinking totally, but the benzos continued to assist me, and I continued to use marijuana to aid me. Slowly but steadily, I'm feeling better. I met this girl the other day who seemed to be lovely and interested in me. No, I don't flaunt my wealth, therefore she has no idea I'm wealthy. Going back to my boxing gym has really aided me in regaining my muscle mass, and I have finally begun to consume some healthier foods. I'm slowly getting back on my feet, and I'm hoping I don't make the same mistake again. Story 2. 3 years of deception. I am a 24-year-old guy residing in Australia. I am originally from a South Asian nation. I met my girlfriend in high school when we were 16 and began dating shortly after. Our 8th anniversary is coming up next month. We both came to Australia after high school when we were 18 years old. We were the picture-perfect pair. I'm madly in love. There were no problems, and I was always the ideal boyfriend, and she was the perfect girlfriend. We didn't live together at first because of cultural differences when we initially moved to Australia. She was housed with her cousin, while I was housed with one of my uncles. She then moved into a home with several of her friends, and I spent some nights with her and some with my uncle. However, we have now moved in together and have been living together for almost a year. When we first arrived, she found a job at a restaurant. I saw she was fairly close to the manager after a few weeks. He would always drop her, and they would often communicate and hang up outside of work. I was a little concerned at first, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. I eventually became irritated by their proximity and requested her to maintain her distance from him. It seemed that she did, and then he had to go for some other reason. But first, he proclaimed his love to her and everything, but she declined. She told me everything. She also said he kissed her once, but that was the end of it. This was clearly a trying period for both of us, but I adore her, so it didn't bother me. After that, she departed on a 2-month vacation while I remained here. When she returned, everything looked to be back to normal. After about a year, I noticed that she often receives messages from one man. This is not the manager, but a separate individual. She said that it was merely a man she works with. I reminded her of what had transpired with the manager before and just advised her to be cautious. But I didn't make a big deal out of it since I trust her, and she is intelligent enough to discern a guy's motives. I see she is still talking to him and hanging out with him a few months later. Movies, meals, and so forth. At this point, I urge her to stop talking to him because it makes me uncomfortable. But she didn't stop talking to him or seeing him. I would sometimes ban his number on her phone, but she always unblocked him and continued in touch. She then began deleting her messages and lied about going out with friends when she went to visit him. Some of the messages I saw were him expressing he loves her, asking her what she was wearing, and even asking for photographs. I keep urging her to quit seeing him, and one day she says she's been seeing him for a while now, and they'd even slept together. I'm not sure why she confessed it, but I assured her I loved her and that whatever happened was okay. All I need is for her to quit seeing him, and everything will be okay. That was almost 3 years ago. She continues to visit him on a regular basis. When she goes to visit him, she lies, but I've caught her a few times. I don't bother blocking his number, and I don't even check her phone very often anymore. We shared a house last year. It was her idea, and I approved of it. But she continues to see him even after we moved in together. Maybe a little less often now that I'm at home. But she is still seeing him. It's been 3 years. I've made it apparent that I adore her and can't imagine my life without her. I don't care what she did. All she needs to do now is stop seeing him. Aside from that, we're just like any other couple. Maybe we simply quarrel a little more than other couples, but I think it's largely because she sees him. My issue is, why isn't she stopping seeing him? Is she head over heels in love with him? So why hasn't she abandoned me for him? Is she no longer in love with me? So why did she ask to live together? I'm not sure. I prefer not to think about it since I believe that ignoring it will ultimately weary them and cause them to quit. What I also don't understand is why I haven't ended things with her yet. Why am I so connected and in love with you? Despite the fact that she had cheated on me,